Hi YouTube, welcome to Van Gogh Garage. We're actually in the garage for a change. Normally I'm working on vans outside because they don't fit in the garage. This time we're working on the 82 F-100 named Cletus. The kids gave it that name. Bought this truck in 2019, had a 6-cylinder with a manual transmission. I'm swapping it to a 5.8 351 Windsor and a C6 automatic. And the video is going to start from the beginning, right after I pulled the engine out of a van. It's been a process. It's taken quite a while. I was hoping to do one video start to finish, but the video's getting long. I'm waiting on parts, so we're going to make it at least a two-parter. But in this video I'll show you what I did. At the end I'll do a recap of everything it takes to switch it to a V8 and to put the automatic transmission in it. I just want to say welcome to the garage. Let's get into it. So I got the engine and transmission removed from the van. It's pretty grungy. Already removed a pile of vacuum hoses. Now I'm gonna clean this up, put in new gaskets, seals, timing chain, maintenance everything, and then I'll put it in my 82 F-100. Should be a lot of fun in there. Alright, just soaked this thing down with the purple stuff. I'm gonna hit it with the pressure washer. See how it cleans up. That's pretty grungy. Check it out here in a minute. Well, it's nothing to brag about it, but it is definitely way cleaner than when I started. And just keep cleaning from here though, as I start taking it apart. I just want to freshen it up a little bit. New gaskets and seals. And I was just going to try to use up stuff that I had laying around. Do like a budget engine swap. I did pick up this set of headers off of Craigslist. And a few years ago I bought all these gaskets and another engine off of a buddy. It came with this set of timing gears. So I've started to tear into this engine, got the valve covers off. So far everything looks pretty good. Getting ready to flip it over, pull the oil pan. See what that looks like. Hopefully that's a good story too. And we'll just keep going from there. Getting ready to pull off the oil pan. Some of these oil pan bolts weren't even finger tight. One bolt was not factory. So I'm not sure what I'm going to get into once I open it. Hopefully everything's in good condition. Okay, so I got the oil pan off. It's got a little sludge in it, which is to be expected. And then looking in the engine, I wish I could see some crosshatch in the cylinders, but I don't. The cam looks good though, so that's a plus. Everything seems tight. There ain't a bunch of crap in the pickup, so that's good. Pretty happy with what I see. Keep digging in and see what we find. Just got the timing cover off. Probably could have just dropped this engine in and ran it, but I'm glad I didn't, because timing chain's a little on the sloppy side. So I'm glad I got in there, and I'll get that changed. I think the only other thing I'm going to pull off of this is the intake, and then I'll clean it up and start putting stuff back together. Okay, so I got the intake off. The valley looks good. It's not all caked up, nice and clean. Obviously it's a 351. I don't know what that means. I know what that means. But I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. Start cleaning everything, put it back together, get it ready to go in. Vroom, vroom. A couple of years ago I bought an engine off of a buddy. It came with some extra parts, like this new set of timing gears. Didn't come with any instructions, I did find a video showing how to install it. If I find that video again, I'll put a link in the description. But the gears are in here now. I have to modify the timing cover. Cut this piece off to clear for the gears. As you can see right here, the timing chain was wearing on that. That's how bad the timing chain was before. Now, cut that off and figure out what else I need to modify. May need to grind this down a little bit for the right clearances. But I'll start with the timing cover and we'll get to it. Okay, so I got this piece cut off of the timing cover. Tried putting it on. Might have to modify this piece, but take about 3/16 off of it. If I make it match this one, it should be fine. That'll be the next part. I'll probably just pull this piece out and use a bench grinder on it. Shave it down. Okay, so I got this ground down on these timing gears. So it fits in the timing cover. So that's good to go. So now, put the timing gears back together. I'm gonna need 2 hands to do this, but alright, there you have it. It's all put together in the front. Timing gears installed. Put the timing cover on, and then I guess I'll do the rear main seal. Put the oil pan gasket on after that. Okay, putting the timing cover on. When you're doing this, make sure you lube this up, the seal, and on your pulley. Put your pulley in before you tighten your bolts on your timing cover, just to get everything lined up on harmonic balancer. Luckily, my harmonic balancer puller bolt fits into the crank bolt hole. I can use it as an installer. I suggest you do that instead of, or buy a long bolt instead of beat it on with a hammer. But if that's what you gotta do, that's what you gotta do. Okay, so I got the timing cover put on again, with everything inside this time, and the water pump. Time to flip it over, do the rear main seal, and the oil pan gasket. Okay, so I got the rear main seal done. When I had the cap off, I looked at the bearing. It wasn't as nice as I would hope for. I took off another bearing cap just to compare. They look evenly wore. We'll call it good enough, pretend I didn't look at it, and we'll move on from there. Now we'll slap the oil pan on it, flip it back over, start working on the top end, get this thing finally put back together. Okay, so I'm getting ready to put the intake up back on it. I'm going to Permatex around the cooling ports, and then put a big bead of Permatex on the China walls, slap it on, start torquing it down. Okay, it's time to torque down the intake. Here's your torque sequence. I put a little bit of Permatex on the bolt threads just to keep oil from coming up. These outside bolts go all the way through, and that'll help keep them from rusting. When you torque them in the sequence, do it as many times as it takes to get every bolt torqued. Otherwise the intake will leak. It might take you 10 times. And I've made the mistake of not doing that, and it leaked. They usually leak like right here, and your coolant will leak out. Don't make that mistake. Alright, I got them all torqued. This time it only took 3 times on doing the sequence. Last time I think it was like 10 times on another engine. The engine's finally ready. I got a few more parts to find for the engine swap. Then comes the worst part. I have to clean the garage. So I'm trying to do this V8 engine swap. One of the things you have to change is the radiator for a V8 from a 6-cylinder. So I picked this one up at a junkyard for 25 bucks. I priced new ones. They were $300 or $400 for a good one. And I may do that later on if this one doesn't work out. But I've been looking at this radiator with this magnifying glass. Right here's the worst spot I see. And I'll show you through the magnifying glass what it looks like so you can get a better look at it. I'm just going to patch it up, try and make it work for now. You can see the hole there. So I'm going to straighten that out, straighten out these fins, and try to solder that thing. Close it up, make it work. This is how you do it on a budget. Okay, I'm getting the truck ready to put in the garage and do the engine swap. Gonna hit it with the pressure washer under the hood. Clean up the engine bay and the engine before I take it out so I don't have a greasy mess sitting around. I mean, it's pretty clean already, but any cleaner would be better. And then I'll stuff it in the garage and we can start tearing into it. Okay, so I finally got the truck in the garage. Took a couple months to get there, but here it is. Gonna start with the basics. Drain the antifreeze, remove the radiator, remove the hood. Get everything ready to pull this engine out. Hope I don't regret doing that. This has been a very reliable engine. Starts every time, but it's not real fun. Just reliable. And I think the other engine's gonna be a lot more fun than this. So I'm gonna get the antifreeze draining and start turning some wrenches, I guess. Alright, I got the hood off, got the radiator out, starting to unhook stuff. I think before I make a big mess on the floor, I'm going to go ahead and pull the manual transmission out. I am going to keep that and probably rebuild it, put it back in here eventually. Alright, I got the transmission out and everything unhooked, I think. Seems like there's always at least one more thing that you didn't see when you got the engine halfway out. Hopefully that doesn't happen this time, but everything's unhooked, I believe. And we should be good to go. And that'll be the 6-cylinder out. Normally I use a carb plate to pull out the engine, so I have more room with the lower ceiling. I only have 8-foot ceiling. You have to use a chain on this 6-cylinder, so we'll see if that's enough room, but I think it'll be okay. Alright, let's pull this engine out of here. Start the countdown for liftoff. That's good noises, I'm sure. Here comes the antifreeze. Readjust the chain. I wasn't getting the front out high enough. Give that a out. I'm glad this truck doesn't set any higher. Might have some issues. Had a few issues with clearance. Once I got that figured out, came right out of there. That V8 should drop in there very easy. Probably do it blindfolded. That's what it looks like with no engine. First time I've ever seen it that way. Alright, next comes cleanup. Bunch of scraping and getting greasy. Gotta take these motor mount towers out. The 6-cylinder is different than a V8. We'll go over that later before I put the engine in and after I get all this cleaned up and prepped. So I'm not putting that clean engine in this dirty hole. No way. Gotta make it look a little nicer anyways. So I did a bunch of cleaning and some painting. I think this thing's about ready for an engine. So when you're doing an engine swap from an inline 6 to a V8, you got to change the motor mount towers. These are for the 6-cylinder. The mounts for the V8 are about 6 inches further back. So you got to buy new towers. These fit back here. That's driver's side. Here's the passenger side. There's already holes for it. I got these from LMC Truck. Here's one of the part numbers. I'll go ahead and get you a picture of it in the catalog. You can buy these separate, or if you buy the set, you save like 10 bucks. If you've never been on their website, it looks just like the catalog. Everything's set up exactly the same. Alright, I got the new motor mount towers bolted in. I think I'm ready to drop this V8 down in there. Once I get the engine off the stand, then I'm going to throw the transmission up there, service that. We'll get to that later. Last night, started digging into the wiring harness from the V8. I'd like to use the original wires that came with it, so I don't have to remove them from the 6-cylinder, and this way, this one is ready to go. Bolted in, plug and play, ready to go. So I'll set up camera, get the engine on the engine hoist, drop it in here. Okay, are you ready for this? I'm a little excited. I've been waiting 5 years to get to this part. Let's go. Has landed. Small step for me, a giant leap for this truck. I already have the engine mounts bolted in. I have a jack stand under the back. Let's get this engine crane out of here. Really get a good look at it. Thought it'd look bigger. I heard that's what she said, but I guess you're the only one that knows for sure. I'll go ahead and take the carb plate off. We'll put the carb on there, start dressing it up a little bit, see what it's gonna look like. I'm gonna wait on the headers till I get the transmission in. So I'm gonna put the factory carb back on it because I know it ran with it on there. This is a Holly, made for Motorcraft. Once I get everything up and running good, then I'll throw another carb on it. But for now, let's just put this on there. when I was doing research to do the engine swap, seen that I'm probably going to have to change the throttle cable. Kept the one off the van, but it looks like it's the same size as the one that was on here on the 6-cylinder. Still got a bunch of parts to clean up yet. I think I'm going to run the 6-cylinder alternator because it has a different plug on it than the one from the V8. That's not a big deal. Already checked, look like the pulley will line up. A little bit bigger alternator, so maybe I can get some more amperage out of it. I don't know. See how this looks. There we go. That could definitely use some cleaning. This is the original air cleaner for this engine. So I'd like to keep that on there. Starting to put things back together under the hood. I was going to clean up this voltage regulator. It's kind of rough looking. I remembered I kept the one off of the van that the engine came out of. And it's actually a Motorcraft. So I think I'm going to use that one because it's a Motorcraft instead of whatever that is. Okay, so it's time to get this transmission ready to go in. I'm not going to do a lot to it. I'm going to put a front seal in it because the transmission's already out. And I'm going to put a new filter in it. And then when I have the pan off, since this is out of a van, it has this shift lever for column shift. So I think this is for a floor shifter. So I'll try to switch that out if that will work. Other than that, I'm just going to clean it. I'm just going to use a little oven cleaner real quick. It'll soften that stuff up real good, and then I can just use a spray bottle with a little soapy water to rinse it off. Should be good. Okay, I'm getting ready to remove this valve body so I can change the shift lever because I got to take this nut off down in here. I already got the filter loose. Looks pretty good. There's a little bit of gunk right there. Wasn't sure what I'd find when I opened this thing up, but it looks pretty clean. We got 2 bolts left. I'm going to flip the transmission back over before I pull the valve body off. Hopefully the check balls will stay in the valve body and I won't have to look all over the garage to find them. So I'll get this thing flipped over, get the valve body off, flip it back over, take the shift lever out, and then put it all back together with a new filter and put this thing in the truck. Alright, I'm about ready to put the transmission in. Got the flex plate bolted, torqued. Made sure to put this plate on the back. Not sure what that's called. I think they only have them on Fords. I know you need it on there though because it's kind of a spacer. So now I need to slide the torque converter in the transmission and then I can slide it under the truck and slap it up in here. Okay, so I'm getting ready to put the torque converter in the transmission. I put in the new front seal. I drained this, so I need to put a quart of fluid in there before I put it back in the transmission. Then we'll put that in there, put the transmission in. Finally be done with that. Then I can measure for drive shaft and put the headers on and a bunch of other stuff that I've been waiting to do. Just wanted to mention that when you put the torque converter in, you need to spin it and get it pushed all the way back in there. If you don't, you're going to end up replacing everything. Floor jack couldn't get truck high enough to get the transmission jack and transmission underneath there. So I went ahead and brought out the big boy here. Got it way up there. Piece of cake. Love this old transmission jack. Works great. Everything's manual. You can move it just a millimeter one way or the other. I hated doing transmissions before I got this. Makes it so much easier. Transmission is in. I have to figure out a drive shaft. And I seen that the speedometer cable is about 1 foot too short. So I have to figure that out. Next, I think I'll put the headers on, see what kind of issues I might have with those. I don't think there'll be any kind of issues, but just never know till you get it in there. Alright, so I got the passenger side header on. If you ever put headers on, you know, usually a ball peen hammer is your friend. Especially when the headers aren't made for the vehicle you're putting them on. So I had to do a little pounding to get that one on. But over on the driver's side, that back tube is back way too far. I looked up a new set of headers to fit it. That's $350. That'd definitely blow the budget. So I think what I'm going to do is cut that back tube off, see if I can modify it, rerun it somehow. I don't know. Won't know till I cut it. So that's the next step. Well, as you can see, this train went off the rails. Ended up having to cut 2 pipes. Now, do I cut the rest of the pipes and move everything forward? I don't know. A little thinking, a little drinking, a lot of head scratching. Pretty sure I can make it work. I think. Guess we'll just have to see what I come up with. Wish me luck. So I did some thinking about the headers. Yeah, I could probably make this header work. But on the passenger side it did fit, but both of them aim right at the transmission crossmember. So instead of making a big headache out of it, I'm going to go with my original plan and use some manifolds. Got 3 sets here. This is from a 76 Ford van. It's from an 85 Ford van. That's what came off the engine. And those are off a 90s Bronco. I'm not sure which one will work yet. If you look real close, you can see like they have different angles where the exhaust hooks up. So I'm just going to have to test them and see what works. I'm hoping the older ones work because they're more vintage looking. Don't have all the bull crap on them. I'm just going to have to try them and see what fits best. Looks like the manifolds from the 70s will fit. So I'm going to go ahead and use them. I cleaned them up with a wire wheel just to make them look a little better. And I took a grinder and went around on all these edges because they were sharp and jagged. And nobody wants to get cut every time they're trying to just change spark plugs. So I'm going to go ahead and put these on and start figuring out what I want to do for exhaust. So I put the exhaust manifolds from the 70s Ford van on here. As you can see, it's pretty close. It's only like 1/8 of an inch in a couple of spots. The clearance, I don't think that's going to work very good because that motor mount will probably break down eventually, especially with too much skinny pedal. And yeah, I could grind it and whatever, make it work, but I have other manifolds to try. So I think we're going to go with the 85 manifolds. I got a little more room right here. That's where the other one's closed. I have these 90s exhaust manifolds. And they have a bigger opening, which would mean more flow, but then I got to get into a whole nother can of worms. So I think I'm going to try these next. The 85s. I guess at least it's in the same generation. Got the exhaust manifold changed. Got a ton of room now. Went ahead and stuck the dipstick in. There's no way that would have fit with the other exhaust manifolds, so this was the way to go for sure. Should have just started there, I guess. Now that I have the exhaust manifolds on it, I don't need all this room in the front to stand. I can start finishing all the front stuff up. Put the power steering pump on and put the radiator and stuff in it. Then it'll start looking like something. So I switched this from an SROD manual transmission to a C6 automatic. The long drive shaft was the one that came out of the van. The shorter one came out of the truck. Need to cut about 4 inches off of it. Measured the transmission before I put it in and I figured it'd be like 4 inches longer. So I need to get that cut and then we can go on with that. Okay, so that's basically where I'm at with this project. I'm waiting on the drive shaft, waiting on the throttle cable. I still need to do the radiator and hoses. I gotta build an exhaust for it. Got a little bit of wiring to do. I can put all the fluids in it. And then I'm gonna have to come up with a shifter for the transmission. And now for the recap on the engine swap. Have had to change the motor mount towers. Had to change the radiator because your hoses are switched to the other side. Had changed the throttle cable. The 6-cylinder uses a 30-inch throttle cable. Took the one from the van, it was also a 30-inch and needs a 23-inch. With the transmission swap, I have to cut the drive shaft. The speedometer cable was too short. Kept the one out of the van. It looks like it's going to be plenty long enough. I'll have to figure out the shifter. I think I got an old 3-speed shifter that I can modify and make work. And then you got the trans cooler. You can either use the one from the transmission or just add a trans cooler. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I think that's going to be the end of this video. I need to go edit it so I can get it uploaded. And then I'm going to go work on my 76 Ford van. Driver's door is about to fall off. I'll do a video on that of what's wrong and how I'm going to fix it. So maybe check into that. Be really great if you could subscribe or like, maybe leave a comment. All that helps the channel grow. I'm sure I forgot something, and I'll try to put it in the next video. For those of you that have subscribed, I really appreciate it. Well, thanks for watching the video and have a good day.